They fired her in the middle of the $400 million meeting. They didn't know she'd quietly kept the patents to everything. And when the deal collapsed, she sent just one message. Next time, read the founder's name. The boardroom that morning smelled like victory and expensive cologne. By noon, it reeked of panic and shattered dreams. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I brought down an empire with nothing but paperwork and perfect timing. My name is Aaron Kessler, and until 9:01 that morning, I thought I knew exactly where I stood in the company I'd helped build from nothing. The email had come through at 7:30 sharp. Mandatory all-hands meeting, 9 a.m., attendance required. No context, no explanation, just Grant Delaney's digital signature at the bottom, our new CEO, who'd been parachuted in 6 months ago by the board to maximize shareholder value. Translation: prepare us for sale. I should have seen it coming when security asked for my laptop at the lobby. Routine maintenance, they said, but their eyes wouldn't meet mine. After 12 years of walking through these doors, suddenly I needed an escort to the conference room. The 20th floor hummed with nervous energy. 200 employees packed into a space meant for half that number. I found my usual spot near the front, the same chair I'd sat in during our first team meeting when Neurovia was just 5 engineers and a dream. Back then, we'd mapped out the architecture that would revolutionize predictive analytics. Now, men in $1,000 suits occupied those seats, their faces carefully neutral. Grant stood at the podium, his smile too wide, too practiced. Behind him, a projection screen displayed the Dynarok Systems logo, a company known for acquiring innovation rather than creating it. "Good morning, Neurovia family," he began, and I tasted bile. Family. He'd been here 6 months and dared use that word. Today marks a historic moment. I'm thrilled to announce that Dynarok Systems has agreed to acquire Neurovia for $400 million. The room erupted. Some cheered, mostly the sales team who'd see fat commission checks. Others sat frozen, calculating their vested options. I felt nothing, just a cold certainty settling in my chest. "This partnership will accelerate our mission," Grant continued, his voice cutting through the noise. "Dynarox brings resources we need to scale globally. Of course, any transition involves difficult decisions." His eyes found mine. In that moment, I knew. Effective immediately. "We're restructuring several departments to align with Dynarox's operational framework. Some positions have become redundant." He paused, letting the corporate euphemism sink in. "Aaron Kessler, would you please see HR?" 200 heads turned. The room went silent except for the hum of air conditioning and my own heartbeat. I stood slowly, my legs surprisingly steady. No explanation. No acknowledgement of the algorithms I'd written, the systems I'd architected, the nights I'd slept under my desk debugging code that became the backbone of our platform. Just my name, spoken like a verdict. Security materialized at my elbows. When had they entered the room? "Ma'am, we'll escort you to collect your personal items." I didn't resist, didn't speak. What was there to say? That I'd built the prediction engine driving 90% of our revenue, that my name should be on the founding documents, but I'd trusted the wrong people. That I'd been naive enough to believe sweat equity meant something. The walk to my office stretched forever and lasted seconds. They gave me one cardboard box and 15 minutes. I packed mechanically the photo of my father, the patent plaques he'd insisted I frame, the leather journal where I'd sketched the first system designs. My access badge hit the desk with a plastic click. Dead already. "The severance package will be emailed," the HR director murmured, avoiding eye contact. She'd started 3 months after me. I'd trained her on our systems. At 9:47, I stood in the parking garage, holding a box of memories and breathing recycled air. My car, a sensible Honda I'd bought with my first real paycheck, waited in the same spot I'd parked it for over a decade. Everything looked identical to 8 hours ago. Except now I was nobody, erased between slides of a PowerPoint presentation. I loaded the box carefully in the trunk, my hands steady despite the earthquake in my chest. Then I sat behind the wheel and allowed myself exactly 60 seconds to feel it all: the betrayal, the humiliation, the rage that threatened to crack my ribs. 60 seconds, then I drove home to begin destroying everything Grant Delaney thought he'd won. The house felt different in the middle of a workday. Sunlight slanted through the windows I usually saw only in darkness. illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny victories I hadn't yet claimed. I set the cardboard box on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long moment. 12 years, reduced to what fit between my arms. But I wasn't here to mourn. My father's study remained exactly as he'd left it 3 years ago. Legal volumes lined the walls, their gold-embossed spines catching the light, the smell of leather and old paper wrapped around me like armor. He'd been a patent attorney for 30 years, specializing in software intellectual property. Always keep your own copies, Aaron. He'd told me 1,000 times. Paper doesn't lie, and servers can be wiped. The safe sat behind his portrait, a cliché he'd found amusing. The combination came easily my mother's birthday. Inside, manila folders waited in neat rows, each labeled in his precise handwriting. I pulled out 3 folders, their weight familiar in my hands. Kessler, E. Neural Prediction Algorithm Suite. Patent number 8, 967432. Kessler, E. Adaptive Analytics Framework. Patent number 9, 234, 876. Kessler, E. Distributed Processing Architecture. Patent number 9, 456231. The crown jewels of Neurovia, and every single one registered to me personally. I spread the documents across his mahogany desk, remembering the day we'd filed them. Never assign your patents to the company without consideration, he'd warned. You created these before incorporation. They're yours until you explicitly sign them away. I never had. Oh, they'd tried. HR had sent assignment agreements 3 times over the years, buried in stacks of routine paperwork each time. I'd signed everything else and conveniently forgotten those pages. After the 3rd attempt, they'd stopped asking. Maybe they assumed it was done. Maybe they thought I was too naive to understand what I held. I pulled up Neurovia's latest SEC filings on my laptop. There it was, buried on page 247 of the S1 registration statement. The company licenses certain core technologies from individual inventors. No names, no details, a footnote in a document no one read. But Dynarox's lawyers would read it. They'd read every word. I found the email I needed in my personal account, sent from Neurovia's chief legal officer 2 years ago. Aaron, can you confirm the patent assignments are complete investor due diligence? My reply was brief. The licensing agreements remain as structured. His response, perfect, thanks. Vague enough to mean anything, clear enough to mean exactly what I'd intended. The prediction engine that powered Neurovia's platform, the analytics framework that made us unique, the distributed architecture that allowed us to scale, I owned them all. The company had an exclusive license, yes, but that license had very specific terms that included a change of control provision my father had insisted on adding. If the company is ever sold, he'd said, drafting the language himself, your consent is required, otherwise, the license terminates automatically. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Margaret Walsh had worked with my father for 2 decades. She answered on the 2nd ring. Aaron? I heard about this morning. I'm so sorry. I need you to review some documents. Maggie, the ones Dad prepared. A pause. Then, I'll clear my afternoon. How soon can you get here? 20 minutes. I'll have coffee waiting, and Aaron bring everything. I gathered the patents, the licensing agreements, the email chains, years of careful documentation my father had trained me to maintain. As I locked the safe, I caught my reflection in the portrait glass. My face looked calm, almost serene. Nothing like the woman who'd been escorted from her life's work 3 hours ago. Grant Delaney thought he'd eliminated an obstacle. He'd probably celebrated over lunch, toasting the clean acquisition that would make him millions. He had no idea that I wasn't an employee he could discard. I was the foundation everything rested on, and I was about to show him what happened when you tried to build a $400 million house on sand. The Honda started smoothly, reliable as always. As I backed out of the garage, my phone buzzed with the promised severance package. I didn't open it. Whatever they offered, 6 months, a year, it didn't matter. They couldn't buy what I'd never sold. The Dynarox building pierced the Manhattan skyline like a glass needle. 40 stories of corporate ambition. I'd dressed carefully that morning, my best suit, the one I'd worn to my father's funeral. Navy blue, impeccably tailored, power dressed in mourning colors. The security desk called up to legal. Yes, they were expecting me. 23rd floor. The elevator ride gave me time to steady my breathing, to review the words I'd rehearsed with Maggie. Clear, factual, devastating. The reception area whispered money marble floors, leather chairs that cost more than my monthly mortgage. I gave my name to the assistant, who looked at me with the kind of curiosity reserved for unexpected visitors who somehow warranted immediate attention. Ms. Kessler, they're waiting in conference room C. They, plural, good. I walked into a room full of lawyers, 6 of them, arranged around a table like judges at a tribunal. At the head sat David Liu, Dynarox's chief legal officer. I'd done my homework, Yale Law. 15 years at Cravath. Reputation for closing impossible deals. His expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the flicker of surprise when I entered alone. Ms. Kessler, thank you for reaching out. I understand you have concerns about the Neurovia acquisition. I set my leather portfolio on the table with deliberate precision. Not concerns. Mr. Liu, facts you need to know. We've conducted thorough due diligence. Have you? I pulled out the first document. Patent number 8967432, the neural prediction algorithm that processes 70% of Neurovia's data flow. Would you like to tell me who owns it? Liu glanced at his team. One of them, a younger woman with sharp eyes, flipped through a tablet. The company's IP schedule lists a license agreement. I slid the patent certificate across the table. Check the assignee. Liu read it. Read it again. His expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the paper. You personally own this patent. And these? I laid out the other 2 certificates like playing cards. The adaptive analytics framework, the distributed processing architecture, every core technology that makes Neurovia valuable. Surely the company has assignments. No, I produced the licensing agreement, tabs marking the relevant sections. The company has an exclusive license with specific terms, page 4, section 12, change of control provisions. The room went very quiet. Liu read the marked section, passed it to his left. Each lawyer read it in turn, their faces growing progressively grimmer. This appears to require your written consent for any acquisition, Liu said finally. It does. And if such consent is not obtained, the license terminates automatically. Neurovia would lose the right to use any of my patents, immediately. Ms. Kessler, Liu leaned back, studying me. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish here? I met his gaze steadily. I'm informing you of material facts that affect your $400 million acquisition. What you do with that information is your business. You were terminated yesterday. This feels like what, extortion? I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. I'm not asking for money. I'm not making demands. I'm simply clarifying the legal status of intellectual property you're about to purchase. If you proceed without my consent, you'll own a company stripped of its core technology. That's not a threat. Mr. Liu, that's contract law. The woman with the tablet spoke up. We could challenge the validity of these patents. You could. I pulled out the final document, but that would take years. In the meantime, I'd be free to license these technologies to, say, your competitors. The exclusive license ends with the termination. I'd own them free and clear. Liu's jaw tightened. What do you want? Nothing. I stood, gathering my documents. I wanted to build something meaningful. I did that. Then your acquisition target decided I was expendable. So now I'm giving you the courtesy of understanding exactly what you're buying a shell. The soul of the company stays with me. I left the patents on the table. Copies. Maggie had the originals locked in her safe. Let them stare at them. Let them run their legal theories and calculate their risks. At the door, I turned back. Your team has my contact information. I'll be interested to hear how you proceed. Ms. Kessler, Liu called out. You realize this could kill the entire deal. I paused, my hand on the door handle, thought of Grant's smug face, of being escorted out like a criminal, of 12 years erased in a PowerPoint slide. You're buying a house. Mr. Liu, I said quietly. I just wanted you to know I kept the keys. The elevator down felt like floating. In the lobby, I walked past million-dollar art installations and fresh-faced analysts rushing to meetings. None of them knew that 23 floors up, a $400 million deal had just developed a fatal crack. My phone buzzed as I reached the street. Unknown number. I let it ring. The first crack appeared on Slack. Marcus, one of my former engineers, screenshotted the message and sent it to my personal email. Anyone know why the Dynarocks announcement got pulled from the website? I sipped my coffee, watching from my kitchen table as Neurovia's internal communications lit up like a switchboard. 3 days had passed since my visit to Dynarocks. 3 days of silence that must have felt like centuries in Grant's executive suite. By noon, the screenshots were flooding in. My engineers, the ones who'd built the systems with me, who understood what those patents meant, had created a private Discord server. They invited me as an honorary member. Legal's been locked in conference room A since aita came. Grant just canceled the all hands. Heard shouting from the CFO's office. Dynarocks team left the building, saw them in the lobby. I didn't respond to any of it, just watched, waited. The official email came at 3:47 p.m., sent to all staff from Grant's account but clearly written by legal. Team, due to ongoing discussions regarding technical details of the acquisition, we're postponing the formal announcement. This is standard procedure to ensure all aspects of the transaction are properly structured. Business continues as usual. Technical details. I almost laughed. My phone rang. Blocked number. I'd been expecting this call. Aaron, Grant's voice, stripped of its usual corporate polish. We need to talk. I don't work for you anymore, remember? Don't be childish. You know what you're doing to everyone who still does work here. Their options, their futures. Their futures were never my responsibility. I was just the engineer you fired in front of them. Silence. Then, what do you want? I wanted to build great software. That ship has sailed. Aaron, please. The desperation creeping in now. Dynarocks is threatening to walk. Do you understand what that means? The company will collapse. 200 people will lose their jobs. 201, I corrected. You already fired me. This is revenge. This is intellectual property law. You should have read the contracts. Another pause. In the background, I could hear voices urgent, overlapping. Someone mentioned material misrepresentation. Someone else said, lawsuit. The board wants to meet with you, Grant said finally. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. No. I'm busy tomorrow morning. I have coffee with former colleagues who still respect me. Name your time then. I don't have a time. Grant, I have patents. You have a problem. These two facts are no longer related. You're destroying everything we built. Everything I built, I interrupted, which you tried to sell without understanding what you were selling. That's not destruction. That's education. I hung up. The Discord server exploded with new messages. Someone had leaked that Dynarocks was demanding to renegotiate the purchase price. The number being thrown around was 70 million, not 400. Without the core technology, Neurovia was just a sales team and a customer list. Sarah, my lead database architect, sent a direct message. Is it true you own the patents? I typed back. My father always said to read the fine print. Holy shit. Aaron, you're a legend. I'm unemployed. Not for long. Marcus and I have been talking. A few others too. If you started something new. I stared at her message, feeling something shift in my chest. Not revenge anymore. Something cleaner. Possibility. Too early for that conversation, I typed. Let's see how this plays out. But the seed was planted. As I watched the company I'd built tear itself apart in confusion and panic, I started sketching on a notepad. New architectures, better implementations. All the improvements I'd wanted to make but couldn't push through Grant's bureaucracy. My phone buzzed with another blocked call. Then another. I turned it off, poured a glass of wine, and watched the sunset paint my kitchen gold. Somewhere across the city, lawyers were screaming at each other. Executives were watching their bonuses evaporate. Board members were demanding answers no one could give. And I sat in the quiet of my home, holding the keys to a kingdom that had exiled me, wondering if rebuilding from ashes might be better than revenge. The Discord server pinged again, Marcus this time. The VCs are here. 3 partners from Andreessen. They look pissed. I raised my glass to the empty room. To technical details, I whispered, and took a long, satisfying sip. The email came from someone I'd never heard of, a junior developer who joined 6 months ago. Someone too new to have corporate Stockholm syndrome, too young to fear speaking truth. Ms. Kessler, you probably don't know me, but I wanted to thank you. We all knew you built everything that matters here. Watching them throw you away like that, it wasn't right. I'm glad you're making them pay. I saved it to a folder I'd labeled Truth. It was getting full. By day 5, the leaks became a flood. Someone, probably multiple someones, was feeding information to TechCrunch. The headline hit at 6 p.m. Neurovia acquisition in jeopardy as IP questions surface. They didn't have the full story, but they had enough. Anonymous sources, deal restructuring, valuation disputes. Grant tried to control the narrative. An all-hands meeting where he assured everyone the deal was proceeding with minor adjustments. But I heard from Marcus that half the engineering team didn't show up. They were too busy updating their resumes. The real blow came from an unexpected source. Lisa Pham, the head of product who'd always played politics, sent a mass email to the entire company. She'd blind copied me, whether intentionally or by mistake. I'd never know. Team, I feel compelled to share some thoughts. For 3 years, I've watched Erin Kessler solve every technical challenge we faced. When our prediction engine failed during Black Friday, she worked 72 straight hours to rebuild it from scratch. When competitors tried to reverse engineer our algorithms, she made them 10 times more complex while somehow improving performance. Every feature that makes us special has her fingerprints on it, and we let her walk out like she was nobody. Maybe we deserve what's happening now. Within an hour, Grant had fired Lisa too, but the damage was done. The email had been forwarded, screenshotted, shared. The narrative was shifting. This wasn't a disgruntled employee holding a company hostage. This was a company discovering the cost of discarding its foundation. Sarah called me that evening. "It's chaos," she said. "The senior engineers are refusing to sign the IP warranties Dynavox is demanding. They know we can't warrant what we don't own." And Grant? Locked in his office. The board's been here all day. Rumor is they're discussing his termination. I felt nothing at the news. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a hollow echo where my anger used to live. "There's something else," Sarah continued. "Remember that government contract we were bidding on, the DoD thing?" My stomach dropped. I'd forgotten about that. 3 years of work, positioning Neurovia for a $50 million defense contract. What about it? They called today, wanted to verify our technical capabilities. Specifically, they wanted to talk to the inventor of the prediction algorithm. She paused. "Grant told them you were no longer with the company. And they pulled out, said they couldn't work with a company that didn't retain its key technical talent. Now that hit different. That wasn't about revenge or money or corporate maneuvering. That was about trust. The DoD had trusted me, not Neurovia, and Grant had broken that trust." My laptop dinged with a new email. From the chairman of Neurovia's board, Robert Stenbridge, the man who'd hired Grant, who'd pushed for the acquisition, who'd never once acknowledged my contributions in 12 years. "Ms. Kessler, the board recognizes that mistakes have been made. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss a path forward that acknowledges your invaluable contributions to Neurovia. Please consider meeting with us at your earliest convenience." Mistakes, like I was a typo they could correct with spell check. I forwarded the email to Maggie. Her response was immediate. "Want me to respond?" "No, let them sit with it." The Discord server had grown to 50 members, engineers, designers, even some salespeople who understood that without the technology, they had nothing to sell. Someone had started a channel called Phoenix Project Discussions about what we could build if we started fresh. Erin's got the patents. Marcus knows the infrastructure better than anyone. I could bring 3 enterprise clients who only work with us because of the tech. What if we didn't have to deal with Grant's bureaucracy? What if we built it right this time? I watched the messages scroll by, feeling something I hadn't felt since my father died. Not quite hope, not quite excitement, but close. My phone rang. "Maggie?" "Liu called," she said. "Dynavox is out. They're announcing tomorrow that they're pursuing other opportunities. The deal's dead." I closed my eyes, waited for the surge of triumph that didn't come. Aaron, you there? I'm here. How do you feel? I looked around my kitchen, at the notepad full of new architectures, at the Discord server planning a future without the company that had thrown me away, at the emails from people who finally understood my worth. Like I just woke up from a very long dream, I said. And for the first time in 5 days, I smiled. The Midtown Hyatt's presidential suite screamed desperation dressed as luxury. Fresh orchids, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a conference table that could seat 20 but held only 5. Grant sat at the head, flanked by 2 board members and the interim CFO. Their general counsel lurked by the window like a man watching for snipers. I arrived 15 minutes late, deliberate, calculated, wearing jeans and the Stanford hoodie I'd coded in during Neurovia's early days. If they wanted corporate theater, I'd give them the opposite. Aaron, Grant stood, extending his hand. I looked at it until he lowered it. Thank you for coming. I had a gap in my schedule. Robert Stenbridge, the board chairman, cleared his throat. Ms. Kessler, we appreciate your willingness to discuss the situation. We believe there's been a series of unfortunate misunderstandings. No. He blinked. I'm sorry. No misunderstandings. You understood exactly what you were doing when you fired me. I understood exactly what rights I retained. The only misunderstanding was yours thinking I'd disappear quietly. Grant's jaw tightened. Aaron, please, we're here to make this right. Define right. They exchanged glances. The interim CFO, Bradley. Something slid a folder across the table. We're prepared to offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer. Full reinstatement, salary of $400,000, 2% equity stake, complete autonomy over technical decisions. I didn't touch the folder. The same equity you diluted 3 times without telling me. Additional equity, Bradley clarified quickly, preferred shares, and my patents. Silence stretched like spilled honey. Finally, the general counsel spoke. We'd need you to assign them to the company, with appropriate compensation. Of course. Of course, I leaned back, studying the desperation barely hidden beneath their professional masks. Tell me, what's Neurovia worth without my technology? That's not... 70 million. That's what Dynarocks offered after they understood the situation. Down from 400 million. That's a $330 million difference. I smiled. My patents seem quite valuable. What do you want? Grant's composure finally cracked. Just tell us what you want. I stood, walked to the window. 20 floors below, Manhattan rushed on, oblivious to the corporate drama playing out above. Remember the meeting where you announced the acquisition? You said positions had become redundant, that some people no longer fit the company's vision. That was, my position isn't redundant anymore, is it? I turned back to face them. Funny how that works. Stenbridge tried a different approach. Ms. Kessler, Aaron, we're all adults here. Yes, mistakes were made, but destroying the company helps no one. Your former colleagues are already planning their next moves. I've had 17 resumes sent to me this week. Your best engineers. They're not waiting for you to save them. Because you're poaching them. Grant slammed his hand on the table. I'm unemployed. Remember, I can't poach anyone. I pulled out my phone, showed them the Discord server. They're organizing themselves. Phoenix Project. They're calling